get started. Thank you all for coming. And I very much appreciate it. This is a critical time for us. I want to thank Lynn Montai for once again coming forward and helping us coordinate so that we can work better as a group, as a team of elected officials. Certainly, this is our first time coming together as a quote-unquote new council. And we were, actually, I think the first wave of this was initially scheduled for May 12th. Now it is September 12th, but, you know, better late than never. We're here and we're moving forward. There are obviously a lot of critical decisions that we have that are on the brink of, or made some. We're going to continue to have challenges no matter what. So the more that we understand each other and the more that we work together, certainly, I think we can all agree that that's a good thing. We have Brad Cole from the Illinois Municipal League here to help us. He's been a former mayor of Carbondale, Illinois, and he's now the executive director. That's your technical title, is that right? I just want to make sure I'm getting the title correct. Brad's been very helpful, and it's really an interesting gentleman to add to our conversation. Of course, have our distinguished clerk and our attorney help give us legal advice, and obviously David and Steve Rest. So I certainly very much appreciate that. As mayor, I do think that this is, you know, a great opportunity for us to come together. Even just altering one or two people changes an entire group and a group dynamic. I think that this is definitely a great opportunity for us. I mean, at this point, I've said it several times, we kind of have like 3 generations of council members now. We have our 3 senior council members, Jim and Kieran, Dave Sage, and middle age includes Scott Black and Maboka and Kevin Lau. And of course, our newer people, Johnny and Diana, and now Amelia joins us. So we have new ideas and new energy. I had to do that because I just couldn't resist calling Scott Black middle age.
I think that you just called me old. So.
Oops, senior. Actually, since my sons call me old fossil bones.
Yeah, right. I know.
And then I've got more crevices in my eye than the Grand Canyon. I'm told that all the time. So anyway, but again, thank you so much. One of the things that I've said, before I even continue making remarks, okay, thank you for keeping me honest. Yes. Roll call.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Alderman Lauer.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Maloney.
Here.
Alderman Burgess. Here. Alderman Painter. Here. Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Coleman.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. And on the sheet here, the way I have it is it said I have opening remarks and then public comment. Is that the way okay. And because I only have a few other things to say, and then we'll have public comment now, and when we come back, there was a request at the mayor's open house yesterday to have public comment closer to when after lunch. So I think the way we just do that is that both sides, if everybody wants to have that. Again, many of you, have talked about this in public and other ways. I do need your help in helping to ensure that we have more means of communicating with each other. Everything cannot flow through me, or even through me and Dave anymore, because it's just not, things are going to fall through the cracks, and not even necessarily purposeful. So at this point, one of the things I suggested, and I'm just throwing this out as an idea, I'm to accomplish a particular purpose. I did say, well, now that we maybe we have a new spirit, especially with the new spirit of trust, if we could maybe try the committees that didn't seem to work a couple of years ago. They were disbanded. I had no problem disbanding them. I think it was unanimous consensus, but it's sort of substantial consensus that they weren't working. It doesn't mean that they will work this time, but I have some reason to believe they will. The thing that I'm interested in accomplishing would be if we had, let's say, public finance, public works, public safety committees on any issue that would come to the council. In addition to me and David, there would be 3 aldermen or women who have immersed themselves into that, whether it be a committee chair. They would have to be as immersed, if not more immersed, than I would be in that subject, and they could help also fan out and communicate with their colleagues. If we don't want to go down the path, that's certainly fine, but let's think about some of the ways that we might be able to have that type of with more informal work groups that we, like we're going to be breaking up into work groups for the implementation of the comprehensive plan. Maybe that's the way we do things. Or if there are other informal mechanisms. But certainly, as we move forward, we're going to do more things. I'd like your help in circling back with everybody, or in making sure that there are no surprises. One of my surprises, we should never be reading something in the newspaper, right? We want to make sure that our systems fire as effectively as possible. So, I'm all ears. At this point, is there public comment? We have two people who would like to address the council. You have up to 3 minutes. We start with Bruce Meeks, and then Matt Giordano, and let's do in that order.
I think you used the word, correct me if I'm wrong, alternative, trying to change people's minds today, it sounds like to me on the council. I hope that doesn't happen. I think that I'm in a majority situation. You represent minorities and majority of the citizens. And I do not like to always see 9-0 votes. Mr. Lauer voted against something I wanted. I shook his hand after that meeting and said thank you, because I wanted archiving to be part of the website transparency. It's not. You haven't spelled it out. Now, I was partially responsible, in my opinion, for the automatic committees being disbanded, because in 2012, Mr. Hales, and most of you attended a work session that was still here in downtown Bloomington, that stated in a draft memorandum from Mr. Hales that you were violating the OMA pretty extensively. That wasn't made public until almost 2 years later. The pension was discussed at a work session on October 22nd, 2012. I just recently FOIA'd those documents, and I was denied because you haven't approved them yet. Kind of like the wire transfers. So this is ridiculous. You're supposed to be communicating with yourselves better, obviously, but you need to communicate with the public much better. So on behalf of the council, I did the research and came up with the open data ordinance. I've yet to have anybody allow me to be on the agenda for the committee of the whole to vet it, to discuss it. I left a section entirely blank for your input. That is ridiculous. You are to serve the citizens. You are to protect our tax money. I don't believe this council and many previous councils have done that job. 1995, a policy was put in place that was never, ever approved by the council, the SLBV. I'm not for the automatic committees because I think staff ends up repeating themselves. They do a PowerPoint presentation both at the automatic committee level, and then they come back and do it to the council. I would prefer you, and I've said this before, that you utilize the committee of the whole as your citizens' input level, and to put out new ideas and have discussion. Not be so much an executive CEO board of directors. I think that would work very well, and you could move a lot of things through the council faster. Because the problem you have is on Friday you get 300 or 2,000 pages or whatever it is, and you have from Friday till Monday to digest it. Well, that's all at the same time the citizens have to digest and decide, well, hey, you know, I'm against this or I'm for this. And I think it's just too short of a time frame to deal with it. I think you're spoon-fed a lot of information. I don't think you get all the pros and cons. And I think we need to get live streaming going for all the meetings, including the library board, and including this session. Thank you.
Matt.
Well, I wasn't planning to speak. I appreciate the opportunity. Actually, my son and I, we woke up about 20 minutes ago and just kind of decided to walk down. We live just down the street at King Black Court. So why I'm here is important to me, though. And it's important to me because of my son and my daughter who just started kindergarten this year. And we're here because we love our community. And the future of our community is very important to me. And I spend a lot of time worried about my children's future and whether or not they have a future in Illinois. And I know a lot of the problems that you guys have to tackle later today in all years, there's all the stuff that gets handed to you out of Springfield. But a lot of that decision that you're going to make does impact local people, residents as well. And anytime you raise taxes, I have to look at it as that whole bundle. And citizens don't look at what piece comes from here or there. They look at that whole package. And what concerns me is people seeing that and then choosing to leave our community and leave our state. And we're seeing that happen in the tens of thousands across Illinois. And my fear is I don't want to see that happen in Bloomington. Again, I love our community, the proximity to the rich culture that we have in Chicago and St. Louis and Indianapolis, and the luxury to be able to live here in Bloomington where we have relatively good schools and low crime rates, and we can raise our families in a great environment such as Bloomington normal, and I'd like to keep that. One of the things I do outside of, I know several of you through community and civic affiliations, but one thing I do that many of you may not be familiar with, I'm lay director of curriculum for a local parochial school down the street here, and we lost 35 families last year, and those are, a lot of those were families that left our community by their own choice. And that put a real struggle on us from a tuition perspective because our formula is based on the number of students we have. And so we had a real tough decision this past fall is what do we do to make up that gap that we really can see coming. And one choice was we could raise tuition to cover that, but then you could start a spiral and you could raise it so much that more students have to leave because they can't afford it. And so we've made sacrifices elsewhere. Some of that involved taking an assistant principal and having that person teach part-time. So instead of having a full-time assistant principal, now that person has dual responsibilities. And I also realize you can't always do that. And I know that the staff here in Bloomington, many of whom, especially at the tactical level, are already overwhelmed and overworked. But there are alternatives in addition to just raising taxes. And that's one thing that does concern me, knowing what's ahead from a state level and from a school district level. So thank you. And appreciate you all being here. I know you got a lot of work ahead today.
Now we'll turn to our city manager and then
Mayor, I think it would be in order now to kind of entertain a motion to go into closed session for the morning session. As indicated in the agenda, you know, the purpose. Oh, excuse me. Let me have Jeff just make a few comments about our closed session this morning.
Yeah, thank you. There's been some discussion in the community on this. I just want to make sure the parameters of the closed session is clear. The Open Meetings Act does allow us to go into closed session for the purposes of self-evaluation, practices and procedures, or professional ethics when we're meeting with a representative of the statewide association, of which the city is a member. Obviously, as the mayor said this morning, we'll be meeting with Brad Cole, the executive director of the Illinois Municipal League. It's important to note that we need to stay within those parameters this morning. Oftentimes, I'll kind of get this discussion when we start closed session. I wanted to do it before closed session just so it's a matter of the public record. The purpose of the closed session this morning is not to discuss policy. It's not to discuss strategy for the implementation of policy or anything like that. It's purely for purposes of self-evaluation, discussion of practices and procedures, or professional ethics. So, as we always do, if we kind of get off track, you know, I will be speaking up or others will be speaking up to try and make sure we're within those parameters. Just for the record, also, as I do in the past in these retreats, I just write off my time for these attendance of these. I enjoy these so much. It's just an absolute pleasure for me to be able to be here. Just also wanted that to be on the public record. If there's any questions, we have to answer them. But again, we'll be needing to make sure that we stay within those parameters at our closed sessions.
questions to Mr. Jurgen. Again, load up on him now because he's free.
Thank you for your program notes.
It's my pleasure. At this point, it would be appropriate. Is there a motion, entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to the parameters?
Pursuant to 2C16.
2C16. Moved by Alderman Helm. Is there a second?